So in this episode, I'm going to answer some questions that some viewers had for me when I was going through my cancer journey. And I think I mentioned in the previous video that I'm trying to inspire those and help those going through cancer. But it doesn't have to necessarily be cancer. It can be any kind of life situation that you're going through that need, some inspiration, some motivation, anything like that. So just there might be some questions on the line that aren't cancer related, but this episode is specifically answering questions that some people had that I had with my cancer journey. So the first one is, what was it like being in the hospital at age 13? And I think I mentioned that in the Tiger Woods video that it sucked pretty much. This was 1999, so this was pre-smartphones, pre-Wi-Fi, pre-iPads, all that good stuff. I only had a little 10 by 10 TV that had like ESPN and Nickelodeon, some other kind of stations, but that was the only real thing that I had. I had a laptop with me, but there was no Wi-Fi. I had to use dial-up, if you know what that is. It's literally taking the plug out of the phone and plugging it into the laptop, and it does like a weird like screeching, and you can hear like a dial tone, and that's how I would get internet, and it was super slow, but it worked, and I was able to use AOL, use AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, for those who remember, with my friends once they got back home from school. But besides that, it was boring. They would scoot in like I forgot what the video game console was at the time, maybe like N64 or something, but I wasn't a really big video game person. People brought me books to read, but I wasn't a big reader either. So I really just sat there and watched TV. Because again, at that time, basketball was my life. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to get better so I could play basketball. I think I taped like a plastic water pitcher on my bathroom door so I can shoot hoops. And I had a putter and a little putting mat because I was really getting into golf at that time. So I guess I wanted to be outside playing. I didn't want to be stuck in the hospital. But being sick, that was nearly impossible. So it was boring, yeah, to say the least. Next one. What would you say is the biggest challenge, or was the biggest challenge, when you were going through treatment? It's a good question. I think because I was so young, I was 13 at the time, I really didn't know what was going on. I've heard the word cancer before, but I didn't know, what the outcome could possibly be. I didn't know that it's so many people lose their lives to it. So yeah, not knowing what was going on was a big issue. I was just in the hospital room. I just thought, why? I feel fine. Why can't I go home? Why can't I play basketball? But instead, I'm stuck here in the hospital, doing this, doing that. But really, I think that was the hardest part for me. Surprisingly, the chemotherapy wasn't too bad. I had the effects. I lost my hair, but I still had my appetite. I had pretty good energy for the most part, so I didn't feel any different physically. Visually, I said, I lost my hair. I was on a lot of medication, so my skin tone and things were kind of off, but I would say that was the hardest part for me, was just not knowing what was going on and why I was still in the hospital when I felt fine. Yeah. The next one. Oh, finding my bone marrow donor. So when I was in the hospital, it was mid-May of 1999, and there was a big basketball tournament that my team always played in at the end of May, Memorial Day. And during that tournament, they had, this amazing organization who sadly had to close their doors recently, called A3M, Asians for Miracle Marrow Matches. And they were out at all these gyms recruiting bone marrow donors. So at the time, the way to do that was by pricking your finger, and then the little blood drops they would put on these spots, and then they would send that in and see if they matched not just me, but anyone who is in need of a bone marrow transplant. And at that time, the bone marrow transplant was the only option I had. So they did that, and they didn't really find anyone through that process. And so they turned to my brothers. I have two brothers, one older, one younger, and they say typically they have a better chance of matching because they have, both genes of like my mom and dad. So that's more likely for them to match. And so they tested them. I think one of my brothers had like 6 out of 10 or something like that, but it wasn't high enough, I think, for the doctors to say, yes, this is a good match. Let's go through with it. But they saw something in my two brothers, and then they also looked at my dad's blood work. They saw something in both of their blood that they said possibly my mom would match. And so it's weird how when people think of it, they think it's weird because I'm a makeup of both my mom and dad. So why would only my mom match? And it's super rare. It was, I think, 0.0005% of apparent matching. So they ran some tests, and sure enough, my mom not only matched, but she was a 10 out of 10 perfect match, which doctors, nurses had never seen before. It was really a miracle, and I will always say that I can never say no to my mom. I shouldn't anyways, right? But she asked me to do anything for her, I have to say yes. She literally gave me life twice. And in a future video, I'm gonna do a 23andMe test, because since I received my mom's bone marrow, I now have her blood and cells in me. So I'm curious to know if I were to do a DNA test, if it would come back male or female. So that's gonna be a later episode. Maybe do one more. What was it like after you got out of the hospital? I was in the hospital from May 1999 to November. I was pretty much in the hospital the entire time, but after I received my bone marrow transplant in October and released in November, I still had a lot of obstacles to get over. There's a thing called graft versus host disease, where my bone marrow, just because my mom was a match doesn't mean that my body would accept her bone marrow. So I had to be watched carefully and put on a lot of medications, anti-rejection medications, so that the bone marrow, my body wouldn't reject the bone marrow, and and it would be all for like nothing. So I was still stuck in the house for, I want to say, a year afterwards. I didn't go to school. I got school work from teachers, but I didn't physically go into the classroom. So I think the hardest part after my, treatment, after my bone marrow transplant, was just trying to be normal again as a teenager. I missed a couple years of school, so when I returned, I was restricted. I couldn't be in the sun because of some medication I was taking. But, seeing my friends at lunchtime going out and play basketball, I, of course, wanted to play with them. But I had to sit and just watch sometimes, unless it was, shady. And not being able to play on my basketball team was also hard, and just watching them. So I think just trying to be normal afterwards, trying to go back to how everything was before being diagnosed. And I think as a kid, it's hard. I don't know what it's like as an adult, but I can imagine it's just as hard, trying to find that norm again. And I think it's a little bit easier nowadays because of like social media and the internet. It's just, there's so many options and so many things out there for you to, connect with people. Back when I was being treated, AIM was the only thing I had, unless people came to visit me, but I couldn't have visitors. So I think just trying to be normal as a young teen was the hardest part. Yeah, so I answered some of the questions. There are a few more on here, but kind of want to keep these videos somewhat on the shorter side. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts, please leave them in the comment. And again, if you want to see more of these videos, you like these videos, please subscribe. And or if you have any ideas or thoughts on what you want me to talk about, please let me know. I'll try my best to answer any questions or to put out videos on that specific topic. Until next time.